It was the dead of night, when Sarah started her shift at the restaurant. She was tasked with closing up after a long day of serving customers, and she couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The restaurant was eerily quiet, with only the sound of her footsteps echoing through the empty dining room. As Sarah made her way to the kitchen to start cleaning up, she heard strange noises coming from the back of the restaurant. It sounded like whispers, but when she turned to investigate, there was nobody there. The hair on the back of her neck stood on end as she realized she was all alone in the building, trying to shake off her unease. Sarah focused on her tasks, moving quickly to finish up and get out of there as soon as possible. But as she made her way through the dark corridors of the restaurant, she couldn't shake the feeling that someone or something was watching her. As she reached the storage room to grab some cleaning supplies, she heard a loud crash from behind her. Whipping around, she saw that the pots and pans had been thrown to the ground, as if by an invisible force. Her heart racing, Sarah felt a chill run down her spine as she realized she was not alone in the restaurant. Determined to finish her shift and get out, Sarah pushed through her fear and continued with her tasks. But every sound, every shadow, made her nerves fray even more. She felt like she was being hunted, like there was something sinister lurking in the darkness of the restaurant. Finally, as Sarah made her way to the front door to lock up, she felt a cold hand grab her shoulder. She screamed and turned around, only to find herself face to face with a ghostly figure. Its eyes hollow and its mouth twisted into a sinister grin. It reached out to her with icy fingers. Terrified, Sarah ran for her life, fleeing the restaurant and never looking back. To this day, she refuses to speak of her experience that night, haunted by the memory of the horrors that lurked in the shadows of the restaurant. After dark, the night shift at the restaurant company had left her scarred, forever changed by the horrors she had faced that fateful night. Title: Night Shift Terror. It was a dark and stormy night, and I was about to start my usual night shift at the abandoned hospital. As I made my way through the empty corridors, a chill ran down my spine. The building creaked and groaned, as if it was alive and watching my every move. I settled into the nurse's station, trying to shake off the feeling of unease that had settled in my stomach. The only sound was the faint hum of the flickering lights above me. I had heard stories of strange happenings in this hospital, but I had always dismissed them as mere superstitions. However, as the night dragged on, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was not alone. A sudden jolt of fear shot through me as I heard footsteps echoing down the deserted hallway. I cautiously peered out of the nurse's station, but there was no one in sight. I tried to convince myself that it was just the sound of my own heart beating, but deep down I knew better. As I went about my duties, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The shadows seemed to grow darker, and the air felt heavy with an oppressive presence. I hurried through my tasks, desperate to finish my shift and leave this place behind. Suddenly, a blood-curdling scream pierced the silence, sending shivers down my spine. I raced towards the source of the sound, my heart pounding in my chest. But when I arrived, there was no one there. I was alone in the empty hospital, with nothing but the sound of my own ragged breaths. I felt a cold gust of wind brush against my neck, and I turned around to come face to face with a figure shrouded in darkness. I tried to scream, but no sound escaped my lips. The figure reached out towards me with bony, skeletal fingers, and I stumbled backward, unable to tear my eyes away from its piercing gaze. I ran as fast as I could, desperately searching for an escape from this nightmare. The hospital seemed to stretch on endlessly, the walls closing in around me. I felt as though I was trapped in a never-ending maze of terror. Just when I thought I couldn't take another moment of fear, the first light of dawn began to peek through the windows. As the darkness receded, so did the terrors that had haunted me throughout the long night. I stumbled out of the hospital, my hands trembling as I fumbled for my keys. As I drove away, I couldn't shake the feeling that the hospital's horrors had not been mere figments of my imagination. I knew that I would never be able to forget the night shift that had become a living nightmare, and I prayed that I would never have to set foot in that place again. It was a cold and eerie night at the gas company as I started my night shift. The building was empty, and the only sound that could be heard was the humming of the machinery. Little did I know this ordinary night would turn into a terrifying ordeal that would haunt me forever. I was in the control room, monitoring the gas levels and making sure everything was running smoothly. Suddenly, I heard a faint whisper coming from the maintenance room. I brushed it off, thinking it was just the wine playing tricks on me. But as the night went on, the whispers grew louder and more persistent. Feeling uneasy, I decided to investigate the source of the sound. As I made my way to the maintenance room, the lights flickered and went out, plunging me into darkness. I fumbled for my flashlight, and when I turned it on, I saw a shadowy figure standing at the end of the hallway. My heart raced as I called out, asking who was there. There was no response, only the sound of heavy breathing. I took a step back, my hands trembling in fear. Suddenly, the figure vanished into thin air, leaving me in utter shock and disbelief. Shaken but determined to get to the bottom of this, I continued on to the maintenance room. As I entered, I could feel a chilling presence in the air. The whispers had now turned into guttural moans, and I could hear the sound of something dragging along the floor. I shone my flashlight around the room, and to my horror, I saw the ghostly apparition of a former gas company employee, his eyes hollow and filled with malice. I stumbled backwards, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. The ghostly figure began to advance towards me, reaching out with his translucent hands. I turned and ran as fast as I could, the echoes of his haunting moans following me down the dark corridors. I finally made it back to the control room, my body trembling with fear. As I caught my breath, I heard a loud bang coming from the storage room. I slowly peered around the corner and saw that the gas valves were being tampered with, causing the gas levels to skyrocket to dangerous levels. Realizing the severity of the situation, I quickly rushed to shut off the valves and prevent a potential disaster. As I worked frantically, the whispers and moans grew louder and more desperate, as if the ghostly presence was trying to stop me from saving the company from catastrophe. Finally, I managed to contain the situation and restore the gas levels to normal. The building fell silent once again, and the ghostly apparition had vanished. I collapsed into a chair, my heart still pounding from the adrenaline rush. I knew that I had just experienced something truly terrifying, and I couldn't shake the feeling that the ghostly presence was somehow connected to the gas company's dark past. From that night on, I never looked at the gas company the same way again, always wondering if the ghostly apparition would return to haunt me once more.